When I think about how music has impacted my life, I look back and I think about the fact that I've always been surrounded by musicians. My childhood best friend was practically a violin prodigy. He started playing when he was 5, and we became best friends shortly after. He lived down the street from me, so I would go to his house every day after school, and he'd have to practice his violin before we could play. I remember just, what his life looked like as a musician. Then I grew up and started working, started hanging out with people that were musicians, rappers, rock stars, you name it. But I never really gave myself the chance to even try. I was living through other people, and through that, I lost myself. Or I guess I never really found myself. I was living through the identity of the collective of my environment and never really looked at my uniqueness. I just kind of absorbed the uniqueness of everyone around me and tried to build myself to be that, or like a totality of that. That really put a lot of weight on my shoulders. And on top of that, I was the youngest of 3 in a home that my mom owned a daycare in. So there were always kids around that I was constantly being compared to. My older brothers, I was being compared to these other kids. Honestly, it had a lot of unrealistic expectations put on me, or I put on myself through the perception of the authority figures in my life. But yeah, regardless, all that aside, those were the cards I was dealt, and I responded in a way that wasn't healthy. I ended up going down a path of drug addiction, starting with weed, but that wasn't good enough. It made me feel good, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't numbing that pain I was feeling. It made it more bearable, but it wasn't taking it away. So fast forward a couple years, I was probably like 18. I went to a friend's house and he had some cocaine. I fell in love with it. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. But it was probably a little too much fun because once the party was over and everyone went back to their lives, I was still wanting some more cocaine. So I got more, and then I got more, and then I got more. Through that time, it was about a 3-year span where I was doing it every day, picking it up every day, buying it in bulk, buying little amounts, just as much as I could afford. I got kicked out of my mom's house twice, lived in my car for months at a time twice, was stealing and cheating, lying, just being a shitty human being, man. And yeah, eventually cocaine started making me sick. From the first line, I was feeling worse than I was before I did it, but I still had that dependency to the stimulation, And that's what I was chasing, was the higher upper feeling from the lower vibration that I was used to. Then I started freebasing it and smoking the freebase, but eventually that wasn't enough. That made me really anxious and gave me this anticipatory feeling like I was expecting something, but nothing was coming, and I didn't like that hanging over the edge of the cliff feeling. So then I switched to methamphetamines and started smoking meth. That quickly took me to rock bottom, quicker than I could even realize. It just flashed. It was a matter of literally, it felt like seconds. I lost close to 80 pounds in that 8-month span, but within that phase, I discovered LSD, and LSD showed me myself in a way that I've never seen before. The good, and they were so good, and the bad. Unfortunately, I was never shown how to deal with my emotions or emotional situations in a healthy manner. So when I was showing myself the darker sides of myself, I kind of freaked out and had a mental breakdown. I saw parts of myself that I've been hiding from, parts of myself I didn't know I was hiding from. But within all of that, I saw my potential. I saw the ability to change the circumstances that I had put myself in, reshuffle the deck of cards that I had been dealt, and redeal it for myself. The turning point of that experience put me in the hospital. Well, I put myself in the hospital through that experience. And 5 days later, I decided that was enough. I wasn't going to keep myself in that position anymore. So fast forward a month from that time, I moved from Kansas to Fairfield and started school, learned meditation, and got sober. Within the process of getting sober and, my self-discovery journey, I realized that music is a big part of my life. It always has been. My uncle is a traveling karaoke singer. My mom's always singing when she's doing things. My dad's always humming something. But I was just surrounded by the biased opinions of what my family thought music was, or at least good music. So I never really found it for myself. Like I said, I was living through other people, so I was listening to the music that other people enjoyed, or following trends, and never really figured out what I enjoyed. So when I went into the isolation part of the time that I had just entered, I had met some people who showed me my path as a musician. It just made sense. I'd always been surrounded by music, I'd always felt music in an unexplainable way, but I had always had this childlike innocence and never really allowed myself to look into the details of how it was produced, or how certain music actually makes me feel, or the fact that you can control. Not controlling in the sense of like not giving a choice, but through the choice of the listener, you can set the space and control the energy that's being given through the frequencies being expressed. When I realized that what I want to do is that. What I need to do is that. So I began creating a space within my mind that's constantly searching for peace. Because I feel everything so deeply. I feel everything around me so deeply. I feel everything within me so deeply. I'm realizing that my dharma, if you will, is to create peace within the chaos. Whether that's in the way I live my life, the way I talk to people, the energy I give people. But for me right now, it's developing that peaceful space within my music and creating a space for people to escape their lives for a little bit. Forget about all the chaos, all of the pain, all of the suffering, and all of the stress and anxiety. Anything that's weighing people down at that moment, I just want to create a space that allows them to forget about it and flow. Life is a lesson. It's a learning experience. It's practically school for the soul. And I think that's why we've incarnated and we're put on this planet in the time we're in. So we can learn about history and not repeat our mistakes. We're not responsible for the things that happened in the past, but we are responsible for the things that happen now. And what I'm doing now is just creating peace and living a life of peace. However that looks in the moment is how it looks in the moment. For me, that looks like escaping life through song. The word universe quite literally means, when you break it down, uni meaning one, and verse is like the verse of a song. It's one song, the same verse. You're not gonna like every single song you hear, but every single person has a favorite type of genre, a favorite type of song, a type of music that speaks to them in only a way that they can understand. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that music speaks to everyone in a different way, and only you know the way that it speaks to you. It's like the perception of colors. We all know that the grass is green and the sky is blue. It's the same thing with music. We could all be listening to the same song, but everybody's gonna hear it differently, and they're gonna find something in it that they like or dislike. That's the beautiful thing about perception. We're allowed to have different opinions. We're allowed to create diversity, and we're allowed to appreciate that diversity for what it is. Music of all genres is somebody expressing their soul in a specific way, using vibrational frequencies that allow them to translate a feeling into a sound. I read a quote one time that said, "Painters paint a picture on canvas, and musicians paint a picture with silence. It's just taking space and silence and nothing and creating something from it and calling it art. It's all art, and we were put on this planet to be artists. In a life full of consumption, music is my way of giving back the things that I'm consuming from the earth. There's nothing wrong with consumption. There's nothing wrong with vegging out and watching movies and eating snacks or disassociating through whatever your means of escape is. But there's got to be a balance. Creation shouldn't seem like work, it should be effortless. But the problem is that we've put such a standard on perfection that we constantly don't think we're good enough if it doesn't look like the next person's. The standard has been set with Picasso and Van Gogh and Mozart and Beethoven and so on and so forth. We think that all of our art has to look like that, but it doesn't, because those were the expressions of those people. Those aren't the expressions of you. Your art looks like yours. Your art is yours. No matter how it looks, is how it looks. If you want to get better, then practice. If you want to do something different, then do it. If you think your art isn't good enough, then keep trying until it is, because that's all we can do. You're not going to wake up one day and be Picasso. You're not going to wake up one day and be Mozart. You're not going to wake up one day and be anybody but yourself, and that's okay, because you are good enough. You wouldn't be on this planet if you weren't. It's just about recognizing your soul and doing what feels good to you and expressing yourself in whatever way that looks like. My journey has really been about my perception of circumstances. I'm realizing that everything that's ever happened to me in my life has been because of the way I've responded to certain situations based off of how I was perceiving it. I'm not going to say that bad things don't happen to people. We don't always put ourselves in bad situations. But what I'm finding is that how I respond to those bad situations is how things will turn out for me. I can work through that situation and get out of the tunnel vision mindset and look at the bigger picture and see how it's serving me. I firmly believe that everything in life is a lesson or a blessing. There's always lessons within the blessings, and you're always going to find a blessing within the lesson. And you're always going to come out of it better than you ever thought you would.